At my dad's funeral, my husband leaned in and whispered, "Your boss sent me a message. Tell her not to bother coming back. We hired her intern." I just sat there, numb. Because that intern was my sister. My name's Colette. I was 39 at the time, married for 12 years, and working at a boutique marketing firm in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. Not one of those flashy influencer agencies, but the kind that handled the gritty real-world stuff: hospital networks, property developers, niche tech. Boring to some, but it kept me grounded. I loved the structure. I loved the schedule. I loved knowing what to expect. My younger sister Mireille, she was the opposite. She once described herself as a creative wanderer, which is a poetic way of saying she rarely stuck to anything. Yoga instructor 1 year, Etsy crystal dealer the next, a failed travel blog in between. She had this chaotic, artistic energy that made her the life of any party and a nightmare to depend on. Still, she was my sister. So when she called me late one night saying she wanted to try corporate life, I didn't hesitate. My firm was looking for interns. I spoke to Meredith, my boss, personally. I said Mireille was unpolished but full of potential. Meredith raised an eyebrow but said sure. And just like that, my sister became my intern. The first few weeks were rocky, but I gave her time. Showed her how to structure her client briefs, helped her polish emails. She asked a lot of questions, some smart, some not so much, but I thought that was normal. I chalked it up to her being new. Eager. Hungry. Looking back, she was probably gathering intel. Learning my habits. My style. My vulnerabilities. But I didn't see it. Not then. Around that same time, my dad's health started spiraling. It was subtle at first. He'd forget appointments. Repeated things in the same conversation. Then, one day, he passed out in the driveway while checking the mail. Diagnosis: arrhythmia. He started seeing specialists, wearing a heart monitor. But he hated looking weak. He refused help. So I became the family liaison. I coordinated doctor visits, managed insurance paperwork, picked up prescriptions. Mom tried to help, but she was falling apart inside. Mireille? She showed up for one appointment and said she didn't like hospitals. That was it. Still, I didn't confront her. I figured everyone processes illness differently. Then came the heart attack. Sudden. Devastating. I was in a client meeting when my mom called, sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words. He was gone before they got him to the hospital. The next few days were a blur. Funeral arrangements, phone calls, catering orders. Miri and Mom chose the flowers. Julian, my husband, handled the guest list. I stayed busy because stopping would have meant falling apart. And then, the funeral. We were sitting in the front row of St. Matthew's Cathedral. My dad's casket sat just a few feet away, surrounded by lilies. I was running on 4 hours of sleep, holding a program with his name printed in gold script. That's when Julian leaned over. "Your boss texted me," she said. "Tell her not to bother coming back. We hired her intern." That's it. That's what he said. Nothing more. He didn't even whisper it like he was sorry. He said it flat, like he was passing on a message about dry cleaning. I didn't react. Couldn't. My body froze. My mind tried to compute what that meant. Your boss. Not to bother coming back. We hired her intern. My sister. I stared at the casket and felt something in me slip. Not grief, no, that had already settled into my bones, but something darker. Betrayal is a quiet thing when it lands. It doesn't scream or weep. It just sits, heavy, knowing it's going to stay for a while. After the service, I went home and collapsed. Miri didn't say a word to me the entire time. She cried prettily during the ceremony, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief like some delicate French actress. She wore black silk. Even her shoes were too perfect. She looked more like someone starring in a sad movie than someone grieving their father. Julian drove us home. Silence wrapped around us like fog. In bed that night, I asked, "How long have you known?" He didn't play dumb. "A couple days." "You didn't think to tell me?" He turned over, facing the ceiling. I didn't want to make things worse. I stared at him. Worse than losing my dad and my job in the same breath? I thought maybe you'd hear it from the office, not me. But I didn't hear it from the office. No one called. No email. Just silence. I was scrubbed from the team Slack channels by the time I checked. My work laptop access? Disabled. My company email? Deleted. Gone. And Mireille, my sister, my intern, took over my clients. My desk. My role. I spent the next few days lying low. People think grief looks like sobbing in the shower, but for me, it looked like staring at the ceiling fan and wondering if anyone else could feel their life sliding sideways, minute by minute. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't return messages. I just scrolled through old emails from Mireille, the ones where she'd ask me things like, "What's the best way to approach a client who's on the fence?" Or, "How do you format a performance report?" She'd acted so naive. So unsure. Meanwhile, she must have been building a case. Probably pitching herself behind my back. I wondered if she copied my strategy decks. If she reused my wording. I didn't even have proof. Just gut feelings and bitterness, neither of which held up in the court of public opinion. Meredith had always admired polish over consistency. And Mireille? She could fake polish if she had enough glitter. The worst part was the silence from everyone else. My coworkers. My team. People I thought would check in. They didn't. Because once you're no longer useful to the machine, it doesn't care who you were. You're just gone. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. Not really. I'd drift off for 30, maybe 40 minutes at a time, then jolt awake thinking about something else I'd missed. Another clue. Another conversation with Mireille that had felt odd at the time but now made perfect sense. Like the time she asked if Meredith ever talked about me behind closed doors. Or when she accidentally sent me a calendar invite for a pitch meeting I wasn't scheduled for. Or how she once asked, "What would you do if you had to pitch to a client who didn't like you?" It was all there. Hints. Breadcrumbs. I just hadn't known I was being led into the woods. I didn't tell Mom right away. She was still deep in the fog of losing Dad, and I couldn't bring myself to add this to her plate. But she must have sensed something. One afternoon, while I was helping her sort through Dad's closet, she asked, "Are you and Julian okay?" I hesitated. "I don't know." She paused, one of Dad's old ties hanging from her fingers. "That's a hard place to be." That was all she said. But it stuck with me. Julian and I were comfortable. That's the word people use when they're not in love anymore but don't want to admit it. We were a team, once. Now we were roommates who paid bills together and shared a fridge. I don't know when the change happened, but I noticed the silence between us had become more normal than the sound of conversation. When I asked him again why he didn't warn me about Mireille, he said, "She didn't give me much choice. She was already in talks with Meredith. It was a done deal." I asked, "Why did she go to you?" He didn't answer right away. "She wanted me to tell you gently," he said eventually. "She said you'd take it hard." That's when I realized something clicked for him before it ever clicked for me. She had made him her confidant. Not me. She had replaced me, in the office, and slowly, maybe even subconsciously, at home too. And Julian had let her. A few weeks passed. I stayed quiet. I wasn't ready to blow up the family yet, not while Mom was still organizing donations in Dad's name and talking about his garden like he might still come inside and water it. Mireille texted me once, a hollow "Hey, thinking about you." I didn't reply. She posted a photo on Instagram shortly after, her at the office, behind the desk I used to sit at. Same mug. Same view. The caption said, "Grateful for new beginnings." New beginnings. That phrase stuck in my throat like dry bread. She wasn't even pretending to be subtle. The truth is, I might have forgiven her if she'd been desperate. If she'd come to me in tears, said it was a mistake, begged me to understand. But this wasn't a mistake. It was a campaign. She'd been working me. The way I used to work clients, softly, steadily, with charm and perfectly timed vulnerability. It wasn't just ambition. It was calculation. And I'd taught her everything she needed to know. I wasn't sure what to do with all that anger. I'd never been a vengeful person. I always believed in doing the right thing, staying professional, rising above. But it was hard to rise above when you've been buried. So I started small. I still had access to a shared Google Drive folder from a side project I'd led. It hadn't been disabled. And there they were, files with my name on them that had been modified after I left. Entire pitch decks I'd built, with Mireille's name swapped in as the lead strategist. I downloaded everything. Quietly. Discreetly. I wasn't planning anything yet. But I knew the day would come when I'd need evidence. And I was done being unprepared. Meanwhile, I looked for work. Sent out resumes. Set up calls. But something had shifted in me. I no longer wanted to sit in a corner office with a view. I didn't want to spend my life building someone else's dream. I had built a name. A reputation. And I'd watched someone else walk away with it. No. I wanted something that was mine. A month later, I ran into someone I used to work with, Raina. We grabbed coffee on Broad Street, and within 10 minutes, she said, "I always thought it was weird how fast they replaced you. No warning. Just poof, gone." I nodded, sipping my latte. She leaned in. "And I don't know if you want to hear this, but Meredith's been pitching your strategy to multiple clients. Same keywords, same formatting." I recognized it right away. That was all I needed to hear. I went home, pulled out the files I'd collected, and started building a timeline. Every date. Every edit. Every file that had been accessed or copied after my departure. And when I was done, I made one call, to Garrett Pruitt. Garrett had been circling me for years. He was VP at a mid-sized agency uptown, always sending "let's get lunch" emails and trying to poach me at industry mixers. I never bit. But now? Now I had leverage. And motivation. He picked up on the second ring. "Colette Delacroix," he said. "I always wondered when you'd call." I told him everything. Not the emotional stuff. Just the facts. The files. The dates. The switch. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're telling me they're running your strategy and selling it as their own?" I said yes. "You want a job?" he asked. I paused. "No," I said. "I want a partnership. And I want them to feel it when we pull their clients." Garrett laughed. Not a mocking laugh. The kind of laugh men do when they've found someone who thinks like they do. Now that's the Colette I remember. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not Julian. Not Mireille. Not even Mom. Garrett helped me get a contract signed and secure a few anchor clients. Within 3 weeks, I had a company name, a logo, and a pitch deck that was mine and mine alone. Raina came on board part-time to help with onboarding. Garrett's team helped with infrastructure. And suddenly, I had something real. Meanwhile, word spread. Slowly, but it spread. 2 of my former clients reached out on their own. They said they weren't sure about the new team and missed your touch. I took their calls, listened, nodded. I didn't trash talk Mireille or Meredith. I didn't need to. I let my work speak for me. The first client I onboarded was a legacy account from my old firm, a nonprofit hospital system I'd worked with for almost 4 years. They didn't switch right away. At first, the marketing director, Jeanette, messaged me asking for some quick advice on a data rollout I'd once mapped out. I gave her the information, vaguely, then added, "I'm consulting independently now, by the way." Her typing bubble stopped. 3 hours later, I got an email titled, "Proposal?" They were my second client. The third came a week later. A commercial real estate group from Atlanta. They'd heard through mutual connections that I was available, and just like that, my calendar started filling again. Meanwhile, I stayed off social media. I didn't update my LinkedIn. I didn't make any flashy announcement. I let my absence speak louder than any self-promotion. I heard through Raina that Meredith was scrambling, projects falling behind, timelines slipping. Mireille had apparently taken over 3 full accounts solo and was already burning out. My files were gone. My guidance? Erased. Turns out, charisma doesn't keep a business running. Execution does. And my sister, she'd never been great with the follow-through. I kept it all quiet. No gloating. No direct messages. No look at me now speeches. I just worked. Julian noticed the shift. "You're up early again," he said one morning, watching me pore over a spreadsheet at 6:45 a.m. "Yeah," I murmured. "I've got a pitch meeting at 9. He paused. "You working with someone new?" "Not exactly. Starting something." He didn't ask for details. He just nodded and walked away. And in that moment, I realized how little he knew me anymore. Or maybe, how little he ever had. We'd become ghosts to each other. Haunting the same house, brushing past each other in the kitchen, sharing polite conversations over dinner without ever really speaking. It wasn't even sad. It was just inevitable. 2 months in, I met with Garrett in person for the first time since our call. We met at this small bistro off Calhoun Street. He wore a navy suit, relaxed but crisp. I wore a black jumpsuit and a blazer, hair up, no nonsense. "You've made noise," he said, lifting his glass. "Meredith called me last week." "Oh?" Said I was poaching. Said she'd take legal action. I raised an eyebrow. "Everything I've used is mine." "I know." He leaned in. "But she's scared. You didn't just take clients. You took control." I didn't smile, but something in me relaxed. It was the first time in a long time I felt powerful again. Not for revenge. Not for spite. Just, like myself. At home, Julian had started asking odd questions. "Do you think Mary meant to hurt you? Is this about the job or about something deeper? Would it help if I talked to her?" Each time, I felt the space between us widen. One night, after a quiet dinner, I said, "You were supposed to be on my side." "I didn't take her side," he said. "I stayed out of it." Exactly. That's the thing. People think betrayal only comes with knives and loud exits. But sometimes, it's the silence. The non-choices. The neutral ground that doesn't exist when someone you love is bleeding. And Julian had chosen neutrality. Which meant, ultimately, he hadn't chosen me. Mireille finally reached out. Not with a text. Not a call. A letter. It came in a cream-colored envelope, her handwriting still slanted from the way our middle school teacher, Ms. Cleary, used to emphasize loops and tails. It was 4 pages long. Rambling. Disjointed. She said she never meant to replace me, but that she finally felt like she was good at something. She said Meredith offered, and she just didn't know how to say no. She said she hoped I'd understand one day and that she missed our late-night talks when we were kids. There was no apology. Just explanation. Just her version of the story. One where she's the underdog, stepping into her own, finally being recognized after a lifetime of being in my shadow. I didn't respond. Because in her mind, this was a coming-of-age story. But in mine? It was a heist. She didn't find herself, she took what wasn't hers and renamed it destiny. And still, I let her letter sit on my nightstand. I didn't tear it up. I didn't throw it away. I just left it there, unopened after the first read, a quiet symbol of everything unsaid between us. Mom was the next to ask questions. She'd noticed the distance. You and your sister haven't spoken in weeks. I nodded. She's trying, you know. She says she wants to rebuild. Did she tell you what she did? Mom looked at me like she already knew. I don't want to get in the middle. I laughed. There is no middle. That's when she surprised me. She sat down beside me on the porch, her eyes glassy. I know what she did, she said. And I don't agree with it. But I also know you, Colette. And you've always carried the weight for everyone. She reached for my hand. You don't have to do that anymore. I think that was the first time in months I cried. Not because of the betrayal. Not because of the job. But because someone finally saw the whole picture. I had been holding everything together, Dad's illness, the funeral, the family, my career, and when it all broke, no one rushed in to help me carry the pieces. They just stepped over them. The silence between me and Julian became too loud to ignore. One morning, I woke up before him, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and the morning sun streaking across the hardwood. He walked in, yawning, scratching his shoulder. I didn't look up. Just said, we should probably talk about separating. The words landed softly. No thunder. No rage. He stopped. Then nodded. Yeah, he said. We probably should. And that was it. We didn't fight. We didn't cry. We just knew. Whatever we were clinging to wasn't love. It was history. Habit. Convenience. And I'd outgrown it. Moving out wasn't dramatic. Julian and I agreed on who kept what within a week. No lawyers, no screaming. Just folders on Google Drive and one long weekend of packing. He kept the condo downtown, the one we'd lived in for the past 6 years. I found a small rental on James Island, a place with creaky floors, tall windows, and a screened porch that faced a cluster of trees where birds nested in the mornings. It was the first time in my adult life I had a space that was completely mine. Not shared. Not negotiated. Mine. The first night there, I didn't unpack. I ordered Thai food, sat on the floor with a glass of wine, and listened to the cicadas outside the screen door. I felt everything and nothing at once. No work inbox, no husband in the next room, no sister siphoning my air. Just quiet. And space. I slept like a rock. Mireille, of course, didn't wait long before making another move. I was told, through Mom, who couldn't help herself, that she was taking creative control of a major campaign at the firm. They'd pushed it as a bold strategy shift. In truth, it was a desperation pivot. Clients had started drifting. One by one. Quietly. The same way I had been let go. People notice these things. They don't always say it out loud, but they remember who held the ship steady. And who just liked the wheel. Raina sent me a screenshot of an internal memo that leaked. Meredith trying to spin the loss of 3 legacy clients as a planned evolution. I didn't laugh. I didn't feel vindicated. Just tired. Mireille, according to Raina, was buckling under pressure. She's trying to be you, Raina said on a call one afternoon. But she doesn't know how. She doesn't even understand what made you good at this. What do you mean? She thinks it's about charm. Presentation. But Colette, your strength was always the follow-through. The details. The strategy. That's what people came back for. And that? That meant more than anything Meredith or Mireille could ever say. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. I was effective. And that was why they'd needed me. Mom came over one Sunday with a peach pie and a stack of Dad's old journals. I didn't know what else to do with them, she said. Thought maybe you'd want to read a few. I did. Eventually. Late one night when the rain was tapping on the roof and I couldn't sleep. Dad's writing was neat. Measured. Like him. In one entry, he wrote about Mireille and I. Colette carries the weight. She always has. She won't complain, but I worry she'll forget how to rest. Mireille has a different kind of spark. But Colette, she's the one who will build something solid from nothing. I read it twice. Then again. He never told me that. He never told either of us that. He just left it here, quietly, in the pages of a worn leather-bound notebook like a hidden blueprint. I didn't cry. I just closed the journal and sat with it for a long while. That was the moment I realized something important. I had always been seen. Maybe not loudly. Maybe not the way Mireille was. But I'd been seen. And I had been right to build things, even if others tried to take them. That mattered. One afternoon, months into my new firm's growth, I ran into Meredith. It was at a community fundraiser, one of those sleek cocktail events for local development groups. I hadn't expected her to be there. She looked thinner. Tired. That kind of sharp-edged stress that doesn't fade with makeup. She spotted me near the silent auction table and came over, wine in hand. Colette. Meredith. We stood for a moment, the small talk hanging heavy between us. She gestured at the room. You're doing well. I am. She smiled. Tight. You landed some impressive clients. I just nodded. Let the silence stretch. After a moment, she tilted her head. We never meant for things to end like they did. I said nothing. She tried again. Mireille, she had ambition. But I think she got ahead of herself. Did she? I asked, voice flat. Meredith hesitated. I miscalculated. Now that surprised me. She took a sip of her wine and added, she's no longer with the firm. I raised an eyebrow, but I didn't ask. I didn't need to ask. Meredith wanted me to. She wanted to offer an opening. To have me step into the mess, maybe even feel sorry for her. But I wasn't playing the game anymore. I just said, hope you're well, and walked away. Because closure doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes it comes from letting someone know they no longer get to explain themselves. I didn't reach out to Mireille. Even when I heard she'd been let go. Even when I heard she was posting vaguely about toxic work environments and narcissistic leadership. Even when she made an offhand comment on her Instagram about being betrayed by women who were supposed to lift each other up. That was the thing about Mireille, she always knew how to spin a story. Even if she was the one who'd written the first betrayal. But I wasn't part of her narrative anymore. I was writing my own. A few more months passed. By then, my new firm, Delacroix Strategies, had outgrown the co-working space above the bakery. We moved into a modest but sharp office suite near Shem Creek. Nothing flashy, but it had clean lines, big windows, and a meeting room that overlooked the marsh. Clients loved the quiet. So did Irena. Became my lead strategist. I hired a junior analyst and a part-time designer. Everything was running efficiently, and more than that, it felt good. Like the kind of good that doesn't require proving anything to anyone. But the real moment, the one that brought everything full circle, came in the form of a client pitch. It was an open bid for a major tourism board campaign in Charleston. The kind of account that agencies bend over backward to get. I submitted a proposal just like everyone else, clean, direct, original. A week later, I got the call. We're awarding the campaign to Delacroix Strategies, the voice said. I blinked. Really? You were the only one who actually understood what we were trying to say. Everyone else sold flash. You sold clarity. I thanked him, hung up, and stared at my laptop screen for a long time. I knew who else had bid. Meredith's firm. Mire. This was her first attempt to start over. Her own consulting group spun out from the ashes of her crash and burn at the agency. A new logo, a website full of buzzwords, a few polished press photos, and probably some bartered testimonials. She was trying to prove she could do it, too. But when it came to doing real work, there's no shortcut. I didn't need to gloat. The world had spoken for me. A week after I won the bid, I got a text from an unknown number. Congrats. I guess you win. That was all it said. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Because I hadn't won. I'd simply survived. And rebuilt. And risen. Quietly. Thoroughly. And Mire? She hadn't lost because I sabotaged her. She lost because she thought she could steal a legacy without understanding what built it. The final thread unraveled a few weeks later. Mom invited me over for Sunday dinner. Nothing fancy, roast chicken, green beans, sweet tea. We ate on the patio, the warm Carolina breeze brushing through the azaleas. After dessert, she handed me an envelope. I wasn't going to show you this, she said, but I think you've earned the right to know. It was a letter. From my father. Dated 6 months before he passed. Colette, if you're reading this, it means you're probably wondering whether I saw everything you did. I did. Every drive. Every appointment. Every email you didn't forward to Mom because it would stress her out. I saw you carry this family when it got too heavy for everyone else. I saw you take care of your sister when you didn't have to. I saw you working so hard to prove your worth when you never needed to. I never said this enough, but I was proud of you. Not because you succeeded. But because you never stopped showing up. Let them underestimate you. Let them take credit. You don't need the noise. You are already the legacy. I folded the letter and didn't speak for a while. Mom just squeezed my hand. And that was it, the closure I didn't know I needed. Not revenge through screaming or lawsuits or humiliation. Just the quiet truth that no one could take away what I'd built.